The time has come. The finale, day 2 of the EU FNCS Grand Finals. And today, Takada, we crown ourselves a champion. Over $800,000 to be won, and the coveted spot at the Global Championship later this year. There is so much at stake today.
Every single player in the top 4 are running for the title of the best player in EU. All 8 players competed in the global championships. All 8 players had at least one top 5 FNCS finals finish last season, and we're starting off strong. Lavish Layer, a battle continuing from yesterday. Thomas HD, Queasy, can they take it today?
Yeah, one thing I noticed about this fight yesterday is Cringe. He was kind of struggling in these off spawns, and it wasn't necessarily because of Thomas and Queasy. 2 different games down to fall damage trying to grab one of those weapons at the top, which kind of made it easy for Queasy and Thomas to roll over. And I think this time they're taking more of a passive approach going against Thomas and Queasy. You see them disengaging out of the main building of Lavish Layer altogether, moving towards the south. There's vending machine, there is loot down there, but you're kind of giving up the priority position to Queasy and Thomas very, very early on.
Yeah, we mentioned this earlier, but when playing Lavish Layer, you want to land at the top of the building. It secures the best position for this early engagement, but also maximizes your efficiency in terms of the loot path. So seeing that Thomas and Queasy won the drop, their opponents are gonna disengage. Noms Cringe are not trying to risk it all, especially in the first game of day 2. We talked about it earlier, but as a reminder, the points are multiplied by 1.5. It's 6 points per elimination, as well as the placement points being multiplied. Mixon also connecting shots right off the bat, allowing him to get some pressure in.
Yeah, he's trying to help Pings and alleviate some of that pressure. Luckily, he did just enough damage. Ping's able to survive with just 1 HP and a dream, and you can kind of hear the crash pads coming out. Kind of leaves no choice but to disengage, especially from a fight happening this early. Starting on top of the mountain, you got to imagine there's no materials to really continue this battle. So for Mixon and Pings, specifically Pings, he's going to be able to escape and fight another day. And those points are so valuable because you can already see that one elimination, 6 points already out of the gates for them.
There's a lot of thin ice on this mountain, not a lot of natural cover. But take a look at this, Jacob. The battle of the ages, it seems like now. Pink Vico up against Kiro and Kiduo for that forecast tower. And with the 2 elims on the board for Kiduo and Kiro. You know what, let's actually just take a look at what happened, Jacob.
Yeah, yesterday, this was something that's been going on almost 6 out of 6 games between these 2 teams. And just unfortunately enough, Vico go down first. Pink just gets sandwiched between both of those players, Kiro and Kiduo. Does look like they're going to be able to get that forecast tower in this game in an early hot start between that off-spawn exchange. And with the 1.5 points they get this time around, they can easily start to close the gap between them and the rest of the competition.
That's 12 points, Jacob. 2 eliminations off the bat like that, instantly granting you 12 points is a huge change for the leaderboard. We saw here, Thomas and Queasy. Looks like it was actually Noms and Cringe who built on top of the lair, but you can see that our game 1 winners of day 1, Aryan and his duo partner, were creeping in close by, so they knew that the third party was getting there and the engagement was no longer worth it. Tace and Veno, a huge end to day 1. Can they keep up that momentum here in day 2?
Yeah, leading up to this FNCS finals, everybody had questions about Tayson, his dedication, commitment to the game, and they were even asking Veno, why are you playing with somebody that isn't necessarily putting his all? Well, guess what? Tayson's just a prime-time player. He shows up when it matters, and all of his experience throughout the last couple years kind of leads him to be one of the star players. Of course, those 5 FNCS championships kind of helps along the way, and then him and Veno combining. Every single time I see them take the stage, they're just getting better each and every single moment.
Yeah, and if Tayson's able to get his 6th here, it's going to tie him for the most overall FNCS titles across all regions, alongside Mero, Epic Whale, and Arkram, which are all NA-based players.
Very impressive. List the names. The accolade alone, even if the names aren't that impressive, is just massive in its own right. Yanis Flixie uncontested with Reckless Railways. Not too much change going on for them on that side of the map. But this one, this is the fight that more times than not ends up with a winner, even with a third party coming in. Thomas dealing most of the damage, but he gets sandwiched 2v1, almost stuck in a box. He's able to escape narrowly to try to live, but Queasy's there trying to alleviate the pressure, follow up on that damage that he laid down to begin with. Good job. Another shot's gonna be landed, but instead of going full focus into that fight, you see him doing just enough to allow Thomas and him to disengage and heal up.
Only shields they have are, well, is that Flowberry Fizz. They're even aware that there are more duos in the surrounding area. They've got a bit of damage. They don't need the eliminations based on the risk that it's gonna include. So they will back off here, continue farming up, continue looting, but it looks like another forecast battle. Henski walks Pixie. Nobody with a clear advantage yet.
I feel like you could tell teams yesterday hit the VODs after the day was done. More times than not, Hem and Vasquez were able to get this uncontested, giving them a huge advantage with the forecast tower. Somebody else, I think, was able to grab it. Pixie and Wox possibly, as Hen was kind of down there by himself. Vasquez was separated, so you got to imagine the forecast tower going over to Wox and Pixie. And so that kind of leaves a choice. Do you stay? Do you continue to fight this fight, especially since zone is now going to force you in, or do you just try to disengage on out? You can't get what you came for, and so you got to kind of move on with the show.
You can see the duos already on the edge of the zone, kind of on the mini map at the bottom right. You can see they're facing the players here at the forecast tower, kind of waiting for something to happen, whether it be them rotating back in zone or anything that opens up an option to take a few shots. They do have a few ridges, that natural environment to use as cover, so they are going to be protected. But forecast tower has been given up. Medallion traded.
All right, got 3 of the forecast towers to kind of grab. Wox Pixie gets one. Kiro Kuduo gets the other. So both of these teams are going to have the element of being able to see the next zone before the previous one does close. So they're going to have an advantage in terms of positioning. There's definitely so many other intricacies into the game. Storm Surge, extra loot, materials that you need to get. So sometimes you can't just beeline it.
Looking at Vidil and Reason. Reason has been in this position before. First place after day 1 in an FNCS finals. But after day 2, he wasn't able to hold on to it. So we'll see if history can be changed today. For Tini and Misha, though, 2 quick elims on the board. 12 points. They're in the zone, but being the second one, Storm is not going to be dealing enough damage yet for it to be too much danger, so they can farm up and make their way back in.
Yeah, the blessing is they were able to get those 2 eliminations. Even with how drastic Storm Surge has been with, you know, sometimes we're seeing 12, 15 people that need to go down before it deactivates. Getting that early surge is so important, but you got to be able to keep the flow going throughout the course of the game. Even if the first couple of zones you are ahead of surge, we've seen teams fall behind at a moment's notice. As we jump on board, Vortexers and Voco, a team that I've been seeing progress and get better and better each and every season that they partake, and even got their first FNCS Finals win yesterday in a set lobby. So they're already on an upward trajectory, and they're already trying to third-party another fight for some cheeky surge opportunities.
Can they make it their second, Jacob? Is what I'm wondering. Boxed up in a nice position to kind of take shots on these engagements. And look at this. 2 of our top 4 duos right now. Malabuka Merstash, Vidil Reason. It would be scary to see these 2 duos go into a full-out engagement so early on, but it looks like they're just looking for damage. It's Tayson and Veno, though, in a bit more of a risky situation. If you look at Veno's HP, he is healing up. It's Diox, it's Cade. They're the ones boxed up below.
Yeah, and throughout the course of the day yesterday, Tayson, Veno, they weren't scared to go in third-party forecast towers. They weren't scared to go in, but a nice opportunity from Diox trying to go ahead and take piece control, box up Tayson. Unfortunately enough, he was able to slither on out of there and find himself a crevice to peek through. Veno finally joins the fight after finally healing up. And what they're going after now is those combat caches. Third zone, combat caches spawning around the map, and 2 teams are going to be granted that combat cache, and this is what happens when they go ahead and try to fight for it.
so far just looking for that big shot. Tayson with the epic hammer pump can deal an incredible amount of damage if he's able to connect the headshot. But they don't want to put themselves in too much of a risky situation, especially without already having the upper hand on this battle. So as they try and replace walls and try and find angles, it's more just like a back and forth game of ping pong between these two duos.
And rightfully so, Cade and Diox were actually playing pretty well to start the day off yesterday. Even at one point, sharing first place on that leaderboard before kind of hit some speed bumps in the road. But Tayson and Veno, they're going to disengage on out, kind of leaving what's left of that weapon cache on over to Cade and Diox. It's going to help their game out, help Metal that they were able to gab, because you know they land over towards fencing fields, and with so many teams, 3 contested teams on that side of the map, you can kind of see that there might not be too many opportunities to grab Metal, which is the hardest resource to gather.
You can see a lot of the duos here kind of surrounding the forecast tower that Pink and Vico and Kiro and Kiduo have been battling against almost all season long. But with the fight having ended so early on, there's nothing really to third party. Looks like Thomas and Queasy, though, are going to get a free combat cache. Nobody contesting it, even pulling the 4th zone here. They are a bit at the edge of it up north, so it would be nice to rotate a bit more centered, but they've got the extra loot, they've got the extra metal, and now they're free to continue with their rotate.
Yeah, this is, I wouldn't say an interesting season, but this is one of those seasons to where you have so many different teams fighting for history, fighting for bragging rights on their own mind. If you look at this team right here, Queasy and Thomas, this would have been, if they do win, Thomas's first FNCS title, even though he's been so close so many times. But the impressive thing is actually going to be on the other side with Queasy. This will not only be his 4th FNCS title, but this will have been his 3rd duos championship, and every single time, Takada, it's with a different teammate. That just goes to show how impressive Queasy is and what he's able to do with his duos, no matter who it is by his side.
And each of those duos that Queasy was paired up with, it was their first FNCS win, including Thomas's if he's able to get it. I mean, you talked about his consistency. He has the most top 10 finishes in the world, not in EU, in the world, for FNCS finals at 14 top 10s, 10 top 5s, and 7 top 3s, but he's yet to win an FNCS, so this could be history for Thomas HD. Veno, Tayson now looking like they've secured the Rift Island. Veno, top tier EU competitor, known as one of the greatest fighters of all time. But if he's able to add yet another FNCS title to his name, his 3rd title, it could help him round out his kind of resume as a Fortnite competitor. Giraz Chari now, 247 above the Storm Surge threshold. We've seen how dominant, how prevalent Storm Surge has been, especially in these grand finals with the amount of experience that's in this lobby. So seeing them already 200 above in this 4th zone, using that lock-on pistol, it's a great position to be in.
And their team, particularly in this zone, they do find a lot of damage. I think they're ranked 5th in Zone 4 when it comes to overall damage dealt throughout the past couple games. But Thomas with the crash pad, they didn't even hear it coming. Oh no, I cannot believe Thomas does it again. Queasy's just there watching that one go down. And Queasy has to just be smiling ear to ear. Yeah, that's my duo. He just did that. They had no idea.
Are you kidding me? Caught them with their pants down. They didn't even know where they were. In the bush looking lost. Quick 2 eliminations. I mean, that is a incredibly powerful way to start off game 1.
That's just one of those moments where, like, you know that thing could probably happen. You know you could get launch stand, but you never expect in a million years. Bevy's trying to fight back. Pressure coming in. Pablo's going to be stuck by himself, but he has the HP. Even a knock, a trade on the other side. So it's going to come down to a 1v1. He returns back. He's trying to go ahead and get revenge for Bevies, who went down. And he has a huge damage lead, and he's continuing to push himself further and further up that mountain. Finally gets the elimination to save the day, and they're really trying to reunite the momentum in which they started off the day yesterday. They even got a VR. If they can mix that up in here today, Takada, they'll be well on their way to the top of the leaderboard.
Look, All these brawls are ending incredibly fast today. I mean, there's a lot of staggered kind of engagements, but they haven't really ended in eliminations. The ones that have ended in eliminations have, it's been in an instant, literally, from Thomas jumping in the bush to now Pablo finishing it off quickly. Merstash Malabuka, on the other hand, no eliminations to their name yet, but with the position they're in, the loot, the materials, the consumables, they have everything to make something happen.
And all they need is a chance. I think Malabuka has taught us that by himself. Just need a chance to get back into the game. You can make wonders happen. Merstash might have the record with least amount of game time actually played with a victory royale in Malabuka's impressive run to qualify to the grand finals. It's not an accolade most people even have a chance to get, because Bevy's going to get a chance to get back into the game. Him and Pablo got a second chance at life, and they're 200 above the damage threshold. So very, very little to worry about outside of rotating the zone.
Taking a look here, I'm trying to see as we get closer and closer how many duos are already based up inside of the zone. It's a significant amount as they're looking around to see now that, you know, the Storm Surge threshold is appeared on the screen. They know whether they need damage or not, as Pablo connecting those shots with the lock-on pistol and now making his way in. Bevies, though, being so low, you know it's gonna be a deciding factor if they're able to group back together.
Reason and Vidil, 77 above. Slowly bouncing around that Storm Surge threshold. Pretty consistent overall on day one. Gave themselves a nice little cushion up until that last game where they did go down just a little bit earlier than they'd hoped. And you can see even with Storm Surge kind of showing itself, they're not too worried about it. These guys have experienced almost everything when it comes to Fortnite and more. They know how to deal with the pressure. And they know that they don't need to make any risky plays to try to rotate. It does look like they're just trying together some extra small fry, any HP heals. And then they have the choice to grapple blade to the zone or maybe even find a rift that is left over from Loot Island.
That is one of the most important factors of this mid-game. It's making use of the natural mobility from Rift Island. If you're close by, duos basing up on the rifts that spawn on the ground surrounding it. Even the launch pads like Tayson and Benno are using on the Rift Island. But it also causes this kind of moment in the game where there's so many duos flying through the skies, and the ones down below already boxed up will take that opportunity to take shots and hopefully connect on some of the birds flying through the air.
It's literally almost half the lobby right now just using a rift, and everybody kind of knows at this stage that the zone does pull away from Rift Island, but those rifts just make it so worth it, especially if you're able to grab a forecast tower. Vidil down on Surge, only needs 13, but looking to grab that much more. Astral's gonna be in his line of sights, but it's Vidil and Reason who go down early in game one without any placement points.
Our number one duo going into the day, eliminated before the late game even starts. 318 points is gonna be what they're stuck at for the first match of day two. Even with the point multiplier, we know the leaderboard is going to change. Benno, Tayson taking shots, but they're more than healthy enough, 320 above.
Yeah, from this stage right now, they don't really have to do anything, make any risky plays except for go to zone, but you know as well as I do, these guys know not only how to take opportunities, but they know how to create them as well, as they're just trying to eye every single person here on their rotation path. So that way they can figure out which way they do want to go to try to get that slow side of the zone. Most of the lobby is stacked up in the middle if they were just trying to beeline it to zone. So that right side, the eastern portion, especially when you go more towards the north, is going to be pretty open if you can sneak your way through.
Pablo with 3 elims already. Bevies with 1. Let's see how he picked up the other 2. Looks like it was Hen. Caught off guard from the back as pressure was being applied from the surrounding duos. Finishing off Ski as well there. And that's a huge refresh, especially seeing that he was able to pick up Bevies.
Hey, Bevies and Pablo, you give them a chance to play. They're pretty consistent. They can get things going. I feel like the only weakness is kind of biting off more than they can chew in certain situations in those off-spawn contested fights. But you can see first place is down. Huge opportunity for Veno, Tace, and everybody else on the leaderboard to move on up, especially with the 1.5 points. You get 100 for the victory out, 6 points per elimination. Everything else in between is 25 teams still left alive. Finally, placement points are starting to get granted and will cascade with every team that drops.
26 above now for Mixing Ping. Pressure gets on as Merstash Malabuka. 160 above, but it's going to be Yanis and Flixie that go down. Merstash picking up that extra loot already with the mythic loot, already with the medallions now. This duo looking like they are strong competitors for this first match in the second day of Grand Finals.
Yeah, they caught fire on the second half of the day yesterday. And Malabuka, even though he hasn't necessarily been on top of the mountain winning FNCS championships, for the past couple of years, he's been probably one of the most dominant individual players in the entire region, especially when it comes to average placement overall. Teamed up with Merstash not too long ago, but this is their chance to reunite and finally get that Axe of Champions.
Yeah, you talk about dominant players. I mean, his duo, Merstash, had the most individual eliminations in day one at 22. Wow. So that combination is a lethal threat in this lobby. But I'm looking at lethal threats. I see Beto Tayson right beside them. Rotates come through now. 8th zone does appear. A long rotation for a lot of these players. As Storm Surge starts ticking, the pressure is on.
Yep, I know Tayson, they're feeling. Right time to rotate towards the front side of the zone. You take notice, they're going to stay away from that ultimate low ground. They'll always try to find some layer that they can hang on to and an opportunity to go to the front side. He's trying to save Tayson. He gets the body through the box, but he is still knocked, and that team is still on the other side trying to break their way through, and there's even a threat at the bottom, but I think Veno has been done enough to buy the time to get an opportunity at the very minimum to get Tayson back, but you see the just in case, he's dropping the mats to give it extra on over to Veno, just in case he does have to abandon the play, but even trading shots back and forth, Veno is not scared and he won't back down.
He needs to keep holding here. He has to keep expanding to get that space if he wants to pick up Tayson, but as the pressure gets too high, Veno gets taken out. Meanwhile, Eclipse, Dexy up above on top of the Lavish layer looking to hold on to height.
First and second place are now down just at the beginning of placement points. Malabuka, Merstash, this is your shot. Queasy, Thomas, those are our third and fourth place teams as Pablo still doing work here against Pixie and Wox. Gets the knock onto one. Actually, a little bit of help from the other side, but he's going to one that gets all the spoils, all the loot for himself.
Little assists from his opponents, but the presents are his as he begins his rotate now. Grapple blade in hand, 58 builds to work with. Does have medkits as well in case he has to stay in the zone to adjust his rotation. Volko Vortex is close by. The pressure from above is continuing as Queasy and Thomas now begin their rotate.
Yep. Barely above that damage threshold. They know it's not too much of a worry, but the strategies they have, go to the front side. Those would be the opportunities to look back. I think Queasy and Thomas are doing a good job of finding those open holes here through this end game. You can even see Flowberry Fizz coming out, just trying to top off the shields. Thomas still moving forward in the zone as well.
We know how much Queasy loves or has loved playing high ground in the past, which is why I love seeing this duo play closer to second height. But there's so much elevation between second and ultimate high ground currently that they have to find that right opportunity to strike, to chop them down and go for it. Meanwhile, down in the dirt, Merstash Malabuka, 3 medkits, looking like they could potentially have that win condition.
Yeah, great use of the flow bear, and they immediately go to the front side of zone as Thomas, Queasy, they're just trying to go and stay off of that bottom layer. No high ground take just yet. They aren't healthy enough to make that a possibility. Merstash finds elimination on Decade. Pablo getting stuffed backside of zone. Impressive run as a solo Takada. They started the game in 5th place, and this is a way to keep your position on the leaderboard intact.
See, Pablo is clutching so many points. 2 medkits in hand as he's going to play the heal off here. Meanwhile, he plans, what's the rotation? Where's the impact? Where's the refresh that I can get here as he starts walking closer and closer? There's Queasy close by. Nate right beside him. That's not your duo partner, Pablo. That's an enemy.
Wave high to each other before he disengages. Only has a few builds to work with. Trying to be very, very picky in when he uses them, but those are going to be 2 rightfully placed. Able to go in and outside of the box before he tries to make his way back in. Can't take too much damage through the zone. Out of builds. Vortex was in his line of sight. This is his chance to get a refresh, and he picks it up with ease.
More med kits get dropped. Is he going to be able to pick them back up as it's Queasy inside the zone? Is he going to look for some sort of flank? I'm not sure if Thomas is still up. No, he's gone down. Queasy now left as a solo, securing as many placements as possible.
Yep, last of the med kits. Now he has to make his way inward, and he does so with the quickness, trying to get to the front side so that way he can look back, try to defend himself, give himself options. Kiro is going to pick up a couple eliminations, but Pablo, the solo mastermind, still holding on strong. 6 elimination as a team with the lion's share going to him. A nice shot and a nice elimination from Pablo as he gets Merstash down.
He gets a knock. He gets an elimination. It's Merstash. That's up to 6 as Pablo hunts for more. Headhunter right now as Pablo's looking unstoppable with another onto Queasy.
That's 2 big teams, 2 Titans at the top of the leaderboard down, and this is his chance to overtake the first place. Another knock there onto Kiro, and he's bringing it back. 7 eliminations, looking for an 8th. It finally comes to an end, but he's done more than enough work to boost up the leaderboard.
Sandguild, Marius down below. It's a 2 versus 2 against the duo up high. Dexy, Eclipse, they've been holding on since the first moving zone. All they need to do is close it out.
Yeah, they're running out of builds. Everything's going to come crashing down, but Eclipse gets dropped. Dexy trying to fight back, but the numbers game is just too much. Marius is able to stand up tall, take him down, and take the game.
Unable to finish it off, finishing in second, but Sandguild, Marius securing the win, securing that victory royale. What an electric way to start game 1 of the Day 2 EU FNCS finals.
Yep, and throughout the course of that game, we saw first place go down, second place go down, fourth place go down, and then even third eventually. And even though Pablo didn't win the game, he was in 5th place. I can only imagine what the leaderboards look like, but Marius and Sandguild from the low ground, they chop them down like a great oak tree in the forest, and they put in work to take the game. I can only imagine where they're positioned on the leaderboard now that it's 1.5 times points.